Welcome and thank you for joining us for our webinar, What You'll Wish You'd Known About Your JDE Upgrade, a three-part webinar series. Today's speaker is Glenn Wyrick. Glenn has worked with J.D. Edwards Software for over 14 years. Working for J.D. Edwards, IBM, and the MASIC Group, he has been involved in J.D. Edwards implementations and upgrades for both medium and large clients. He is now in charge of product management at insightsoftware.com. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Glenn.
Thanks, Heather. Today, for this session 2, we'll be talking about solving hard reporting requirements in a very simple way. But more importantly, we'll be talking about how you can reduce the cost and risk of your upgrade. I'll start by referring to a quote that I used in the first session from CIO.com, where they say that ERP upgrades have only a 7% chance of coming in on time, on budget, and providing satisfying results. Now, in the first session, we focused primarily on providing satisfying results in the areas of user adoption, as well as really delivering access to the key kinds of business-critical information your user community will need immediately after go live. If you didn't get a chance to catch that webinar, you can find it on insightsoftware.com/events/webinars, and look for the session 1 version of this series. Today, we'll turn our focus towards things that can really impact the reduction of cost and risk on your upgrade. According to experts, including OAUG in a survey done earlier this year, key reasons for failure include failing to use clean data, in other words, not having good, clean production data before the conversion process begins. Following on to that, of course, could be problems with the data conversion itself and an inability to identify those problems before the go-live. Next, a big area of potential risk in any project is custom reporting. We'll talk a lot about that. Finally, cost and schedule overruns and how to just generally get a better handle on those. So first I'm going to turn to another quote from a large consulting firm called General Atlantic and a white paper they've published called 10 Ways ERP Projects Go Wrong, where they state that in fact customizations, including custom reports, represent the single largest area of technical risk in ERP implementations. So any way that we can reduce that line item on our project can have significant advantage. So if we're talking about reducing cost and risk, why are we talking about reporting? First of all, with leading edge reporting products today, you are able to use these end-user reporting products, first of all, to reduce the time spent on data validation. You can also use such products to improve the quality of the data migration. And finally, and very importantly, remove or at least greatly reduce the need for any custom reports. So I'd like to ask you to begin to shift your paradigm around traditional reporting and how it relates to an upgrade. I used this slide in the last session. This comes from the Aberdeen group, who did a study on industry-leading companies and what they're doing to solve the reporting problem. And a couple of points I'd like you to focus on for today is point number 4, provide easy access to the exact information required. We're going to see some examples of what we really mean by exact information. Another thing that industry-leading companies do is minimize the number of reporting products, ideally providing just one solution for their end users to get all of their answers. So although this slide is focused on reporting after go live, I'd like you to keep these 2 points in mind as we think about upgrades. But first, let's look at a traditional view of reporting and what some of the big industry vendors are still saying about it. According to this vendor, for you to solve your reporting requirements, you need an entire stack of reporting solutions. And in fact, I'm sure all of you recognize that to implement what you see here on the screen represents some very large projects. So large, in fact, that during your ERP upgrade, you're not likely to take all of this on. Even with their new product called OneView Reporting, an end-user tool, it only provides a limited amount of very simplified transactional reporting and doesn't really come to bear until after the go-live. Therefore, it is not part of the upgrade equation. But there are industry-leading products out there where you can have a single reporting solution that cover a much broader footprint, solving the reporting needs, and because these types of solutions can go live within an hour to 2 hours, fully configured and ready for use, they can easily be brought to bear during the upgrade to solve many different types of problems. And this allows you to say no to big reporting projects. So these are the kinds of benefits that customers are getting from this type of a solution. This particular customer had limited report writing capability in their development group, so of course they were using outside consultants for much of their work. They put Insight in through part of the project, and the external costs were cut dramatically. This particular customer said that they spent more time and money on 6 custom J.D. Edwards reports than on all 87 user-created reports. So a key here is that it's possible to satisfy your reporting requirements during the upgrade, letting your end users simply create the reports as opposed to tying up developers and building risky custom reports. Next, this customer says that at Go Live, they gain significant insights to their data. We're going to talk about how this is possible, but it's all about end users working with the data throughout the upgrade process. And finally, on the subject of reducing cost and risk, this customer used our solution to save between $200,000 and $300,000 during the upgrade and really take out the line item risk around reporting, data migration, data validation to ensure an on-time, on-budget go-live. So far I've been speaking fairly conceptually, so I'd like to start to drill into the details a little more and start to show you some examples of what I'm talking about. We look at this in 3 different phases. So the first phase is something we would call Smartstart, where basically you're correcting the sins of the past. And what this really means is start with clean data. How do you really easily and quickly make sure that your production data is in the right state before you begin the upgrade process? The next phase is the actual data migration and validation. And the concept that we would like you to consider is that end users really own the data, not IT. But in many cases during an upgrade, IT ends up being the group that validates the data because it's too complex for end users. So with the right end user tools, you can allow the end users to validate their own data from beginning to end throughout the process, which dramatically reduces cost and risk of migration validation. It also improves the quality of that data validation and gets your end users very familiar with the data so that they're more empowered at Go Live. Finally, at Go Live, you can reuse a lot of the things done during Smartstart and end user data validation to ensure very complete data validation and deliver significant business visibility. So let's start in the first area, what we call Smartstart. This is part and parcel to our particular solution, where we do automated checking of all of your core data setup. So here you can see that we're testing for things like account ID, business unit categories, etc. And by running this automated check, you can see the result on the right where the system tells you that you're missing category codes on your business unit master. When we run this particular checker at any given customer, almost without fail, we find that our customers have these kinds of data issues in their production data. So not only do we want to easily and automatically find these issues, but we want to be able to know exactly where the problems exist so they can be quickly remedied. The next area that we focus on to ensure quality production data is in the area of master data. This is another area we find at our clients where there are almost always incorrect master data records. And if your master data records are inaccurate, then the subsequent transactional records are also inaccurate. So this can lead to a very large problem. So we provide a standard set of reports that check master data as well as data integrity to ensure that your data is clean throughout your processes. This is an example on the screen where we're comparing GL class codes from the 3 key tables where they are written. And in J.D. Edwards, if your GL class codes get out of sync in these 3 key areas, this will generally lead to erroneous accounting entries. So this is an exception report which highlights for me only the areas where I have a problem and directs me exactly to where the problem exists so I can quickly and easily clean it. Now using these sets of reports is really powerful because you can run it on your production data and you can also run it on your converted data to ensure that things stayed clean as the conversion process occurred. Now with a simple online reporting tool like OneView, you could build this as 3 separate reports. But that would not enable you to get this answer that we see on the screen. So this is another example of getting the exact information we need to answer the business requirement and why it's powerful to have a single reporting product that can combine complex sets of data in a way that's very simple for the end user. Now, although we provide this particular report as part of our product, an end user originally built this report in about 30 minutes with about 30 to 40 button clicks. So again, this doesn't take custom programming, and it's a very quick answer to get out of the situation. To highlight the importance of running these kinds of master data and data integrity checks against both your production data and your converted data, there was a winery in California that was recently going through a J.D. Edwards upgrade. And in the first weeks of the upgrade, they were not using a product like ours. We were eventually brought in after some of their data had been converted. During our initial demonstration of our data integrity and master data reporting, we ran our companies in balance inquiry, and it highlighted two things. First, it showed that they had mistakenly not loaded the balances for the fourth quarter of 2011 into their CRP data, so that was an issue with their conversion. But secondly, we highlighted immediately that their primary company was actually out of balance for the months of February and June in 2012. This was a big surprise because this was their production data. So that led them, of course, to go back and resolve the production data issues, get that company in balance, and then reconvert the data, saving them hours of headache down the road. Next, I'd like to show you some specific examples in software of how we can solve some of the hard data conversion validation problems typical to an upgrade. Let's look at our first example. What you see here is live J.D. Edwards data compared side by side between our production and CRP systems. This view enables you to more easily identify any issues with your converted data. In our environment, our production data comes from Enterprise 1 version 8.10 and is shown to the left of this line, and on the right here is our CRP system, Enterprise 1 version 9.0 data. Next, our user has created, with just a few button clicks, a variance column which highlights specific issues, if any, with the converted data. Providing this view of data side by side is a user-friendly format that allows the business user to validate data and quickly find any issues. To give you an idea of the effort required to provide this view, I created this yesterday. It took me less than 30 minutes and it took about 40 button clicks. Again, no custom development is required. So this view is simple to create and really enables end users to own and participate in the validation of their data. So as we scroll down, as an end user, we can quickly see that we have an issue with Company 80. So if you're responsible for data from Company 80, you know you have an issue. Scroll down a little further and we find that we have a big problem in Company 4. We can see that there is no data migrated to our CRP system, even though the data clearly exists in our production system. So now back up to the first issue, I'm highlighting that we've also added a count column. This counts the number of records. So in the case of Company 80, I can see that the right number of records came across, but that I have an issue with how the amounts themselves converted. Now the next thing you may want to do as an end user is see the impact of the converted data in a more business realistic view, such as a balance sheet. So we take a right click and link to a summarized balance sheet. Here we can see another comparison where production data is shown in the column for January, my CRP data is shown next, and then we have variance columns, and this goes for February and March as well. So I can quickly look to see that Company 1 has no issues. However, if I move down to Company 50 and rerun the report, now I can see that in March I do have a data conversion issue. So here we may want to drill down to the details and further investigate what has caused this problem. This example highlights how not only you can more easily identify issues in your conversion, but also how you can empower business users to participate in that validation. In this next example, we want to show how we can simply solve a problem that is typically challenging. In this case, we have payroll data outside of J.D. Edwards because we use ADP to process our payroll. But we have an integration to our new upgraded system that brings the ADP transactions and posts them into our GL. To enable our business users to easily validate that the integration is working correctly, I'd like to join that information together side by side. So what we're looking at here is a piece of technology in our product called Designer Express, and it's designed more for business analysts. So in addition to having access to all of J.D. Edwards standard and custom tables through this product, you can also see that we've recognized some ADP payroll tables. So I'm going to pull my ADP payroll history table, and then what I'd like to do is join that to my GL transactions table inside of my live J.D. Edwards system. And what we're going to do is join on batch, so I'm just going to do a quick search for batch number, and I'm just going to drag across between the two. Now to finish this template off would just be a few more button clicks, but in the interest of time, now that you've seen how quickly I can pull data from outside of J.D. Edwards and join it in together, I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of here and show you the finished product. So this is now a report with ADP data sitting on the left-hand side, JD Edwards GL transactional data sitting on the right-hand side. And we've built our typical variance column to highlight where I have problems. This is a highly summarized report with only one line per batch. And what I'm doing as an end user now is validating with real-time data from both systems whether or not my integration is bringing the data over correctly. And unfortunately, I find that I have a problem here with batch 4755. So I'm just going to drill in to get down to a lower level of detail. Now again, this is live ADP data side by side with JD Edwards. So I can see on the ADP side all of the employees that were paid in this batch, the hours they worked, each individual pay record, etc. And then on the right side, I can see the single JD Edwards entry and where it got booked to. So this is an example, again, of really enabling your end users to have the power at their fingertips to validate their data as they go and ensure that by the time they go live, the data is correct and that they're very familiar with the data. And again, this is an example as well of how this report, while very valuable for an upgrade, could also be used after go live as a production report without any extra effort. So let's review the key business benefits of this approach. First of all, we want to start smart and ensure very clean baseline data in our production system. Very often, this actually improves the use of the production system, while at the same time reducing the time spent troubleshooting throughout the upgrade process. Next, we want our end users to own data validation. This reduces IT resources. It automatically creates go-live reports as part of the process, as we saw in some of the demonstration. And most of all, it reduces the risk related to custom reports and bad data all in one single activity. Finally, at go-live, because of the things we've done throughout the process, we can better ensure complete data validation by the business user community and deliver significant business visibility and user adoption. So what will we talk about in our next session? We're going to combine the topics from session 1 and 2 to really focus on ensuring high user adoption, delivering business critical information at go live, and really guaranteeing that your business community regards your upgrade as 100% successful.
This concludes the webinar. Thank you for joining us. Please stay tuned for the follow-up sessions in this series. To learn more, visit insightsoftware.com/webinars.